Hi, I'm Hattie Volker from findyourtruevoice.co.uk, and this is number 2 in my series of blogs looking at the practical things that performers have to think about when preparing and doing a performance. So my first one was on the best way to remember your words, and this one is going to be looking at preparation. After the last vlog, somebody asked me to do one on preparation. If there's something you'd like me to look at, then just drop me a line either in the comments or send me a message and let me know what you'd like me to take a look at. But for today, it's preparation. And we won't be looking at long-term preparation. I mean, remembering your words is part of long-term preparation. We'll be looking at the shorter-term preparation, what you can do just before you go on to get the best from yourself. And there are obviously practical physical things you can do, like warming up the voice and warming up the body, going over your words if that's what helps you. But I'm going to be looking more at perspective, how to shift your perspective about yourself during preparation to go on with the best attitude for getting the most from yourself. And I'm going to be taking a look at 3 things. And the third thing is the best thing. Always keep the best for last. But I'll be coming to that. First is something you can do both way ahead and also just before you go on. And it's something that's really, really helped me in my performances and in my life. And it's naming your fears. Name them to tame them. So often when we have fears, we push them down, we box them up, we pack them away somewhere in the back of our heads, somewhere down if we're physical that way. We try and ignore them. And this could be for a number of reasons. It can be because we're worried that it's going to overwhelm us. And we're worried that if we bring it up, it's going to distract us and make everything worse. And we're not actually going to even be able to perform at all. So it's much better to push it down and ignore it and stride on, push forward. The truth is, fears are a bit like the name Voldemort. In Harry Potter, so many people wouldn't say the name Voldemort. And by not saying the name, not only did they give the man more power, they actually gave the name itself some sort of mystical power. And it grew more and more in that power. The less they would say it, the more afraid they were of saying it. So then they had not only a fear of the man and a fear of the name, they then had a fear of saying the name. And that's what it could be like with our fears. But the reality is, just like Voldemort, our fears are never as big when we say them out loud. When Harry Potter said the name Voldemort, it took away from that power. It made you realise that actually saying the name is nothing. So talking about your fears, the first step, in itself shouldn't be a scary thing. And then when you talk about your fears, you'll almost always realise that they're smaller than you thought. If your fear is of being judged, well, there's only ever a very small percentage of your audience that is even possibly wanting the worst to happen. Generally, none of them at all. So when we face that fear, mostly our audience is on our side. They want us to do well. So our fear of judgment can grow and grow and grow. But in reality, the real fear, the fear of what's actually going to happen, is so much smaller. But the more we don't acknowledge that fear, the bigger it is in our heads, the bigger space it takes up in our head. I had a client who was worried about showing her nerves on stage. So we talked about that, and she was afraid of the shame she would feel of people seeing her being nervous. But the reality is, the vast majority of performers feel nervous, at some level, before they go on. Whether it's even just at the level of excitement, because this could be amazing. It might not be, but it could be. So there's that sort of level of anxiety or excitement going on. And so every audience member knows that. They all know that that's there. So that it might appear at times is nothing to be ashamed of. It's just a reality. And it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the more afraid we are of showing our fears, we're adding to our fears and therefore more likely to show our fears. Just as I said in the last video about remembering our words, actually what I find is the biggest hindrance to remembering words is the fear that we'll forget them. The more we fear we're going to forget them, the more likely it is that we will forget them. So first one is name your fears to tame them, because they're never as big as you fear they're going to be. The second one is about how to set yourself in the room with your audience. Now that sounds nuts, because of course you're in the room, unless you're doing it online, you're in the room, and even then I'm in your room at the moment. Even then you're in the room, but psychologically we might not be. When we're trying to get things right and we're thinking about it and we're processing and we're worrying about getting it right, our brains are not in the room. They're somewhere else. And if we want to engage our audience, we actually have to have not only our physical presence in the room, but our mental presence. Our minds have to be in the room. So I find the best way to do this is to check into your environment, to really look at things. So I'm looking at leaves outside the window in front of me and looking at the colours, or really looking at your audience, because basically they're never as scary as you build them up to be in your head. And even when you can't see your audience or you're not in the environment, checking in with your environment is a hugely useful tool in preparation. We often avoid getting engaged with our environment in the same way as with fears, for fear of overwhelm. We fear that we will be overwhelmed by our environment. And in that process where we're worrying and we're trying to organise our thoughts and really prepare, we want to keep everything small and manageable. But by doing that, we're shutting ourselves away. We're putting blinkers on, which is not helpful at all. And when we're trying to make sure everything's ready, we might feel like our environment would be a distraction, or we're afraid that people might clock either that we're afraid or they might realise actually we're no good. And so if we keep ourselves away, if we keep ourselves tucked away, then we'll be safe. But the reality is, in order to do a good performance, we have to engage with our audience. We have to give and have to receive, because a performance is a dialogue. It's a duologue. It's a relationship with our audience. And to do that, we need to engage with our environment. And if we do that in preparation, then we are more likely to be open to doing it when we're performing. And being open allows for connection and engagement. And that's what audiences want from a performance. So that's number 2, engage with your environment. Now, number 3, you will have heard a million times. It's simple, but boy, is it effective. The third tip is to breathe. It's something that comes naturally. It is something that has 1,000-to-1 benefits, one of which is life, which is kind of a benefit most of the time. But it's something that can get tied up in knots. It helps us with the other 2 tips I gave. It helps us get back into our body. When we breathe, we can get back into our bodies and out of our heads. We can come away from our fears and into reality. We're not living in what might happen, what happened last time. It brings us into the now. It brings us into our bodies. And it also engages us with our environment. For our mind, our body is a huge part of our environment. And if we can engage with this environment, then we open ourselves up to the possibility of engaging with the room as an environment, and then with our audience as part of our environment. And that allows for connection. And thirdly, it allows us to relax. When we're thinking and worrying and concerned about what's going to happen, we can start to hold on to everything. And that includes our breath. We hold on to our breath as if holding on will give us more control and help us manage the situation. But we all know the reality. In order to perform well, we have to have decent breaths. performance, whether it's a performance, whether it's a singing performance, an acting performance, or a presentation. You have to breathe well. So allowing us to relax and let go a bit. It enables our technique to be good, and it allows our body to do what our body does best. And that's where our voices are. Our voices are in our body. And if we breathe and allow our bodies to work well, it relaxes us, it engages with our environment, it gets us back in our bodies, it gets us out of our heads, into the room, so we can give a good performance and connect with our audience. I hope you've enjoyed this second one of my practical blogs. More to come. If you like what I do, then take a look at my website at findyourtruevoice.co.uk, where there's a lot more about the work I do. Enjoy the rest of this glorious day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.